Am I so focused on being at someone else's table when sometimes you're invited to the table, but you're not welcome at the table? Am I so focused on that I need to really hone in on crafting my own table?
Right.
And that own table may be a part of your mission, your vision. Are you around people who celebrate you or tolerate you? And your son's spirit, Lorenzo Michael Cockrell's spirit, will live in Rubin Cockrell Jr.'s spirit. And then that took that black cloud out of me where I can embrace him getting ready to come into the world and knowing that he was going to his spirit was going to live in certain aspects of. And so
enemy was just trying to infiltrate my mind, and I had to get some counsel behind it, and then let God peel those layers. Like, it ain't your fault.
Right.
This is not the part you just dealt with.
Right.
And I had to find peace in that.
Yes. Some people who you thought was on one side of the list, they're really on the other side of the list. And then some people, they switched up.
Dr. Rubin Cockrell is an award-winning speaker, author, and global change agent dedicated to empowering individuals and organizations. As CEO, founder of Positive Images and Associates, he leads a renowned consulting firm specializing in leadership, empowerment, and management, serving clients in 45-plus countries. His customized training programs support students, entrepreneurs, professionals, and athletes, fostering growth, leadership, and success worldwide. Please welcome my brother, Dr. Rubin Cockrell. Well, I'm back again with My Manhood Matters with Charles Sneed. Real men, real times, real journeys. I am here with my brother from Ohio, now in Nashville, Tennessee, Mr. Dr. Rubin Cockrell. Man, thank you so much for being on the show, Rubin.
It's good to see you.
Man, it's always a pleasure.
Hey, I ain't seen you in a month of Sundays.
It's been because you're in Beijing. You're all over the place. Man, being that global leader that you are. I have one question, Rubin, before we start talking about manhood. Why the new book? Mastering Your Own Table. Now, keep in mind, lady, he has other books we're going to talk about, but this is his latest book. So why Mastering Your Own Table? Transforming setbacks into strengths and creating a life of purposeful, unstoppable success. This is good.
Yeah, I think for that book was really timely, you know, in terms of emotional suppression and going through experiences. For me, it's good to write down notes, write down different things. So I've compiled experiences of me going through divorce, to loss, child loss, right, to business that went really well and things that didn't go really well. And so I wrote it and talked about mastering your own table, because a lot of times we get in conversations of talking about, you know, what do you have to bring to the table? Or what kind of table do you have? Right. And really looking at it from a ownership and self-love standpoint. Am I so focused on being at someone else's table when sometimes you're invited to the table, but you're not welcome at the table? Am I so focused on that I need to really hone in on crafting my own table?
Right.
And that own table may be a part of your mission, your vision, overcoming fear. I talk about overcoming challenges of and creating that table, that foundational piece. And what does that table look like? What accessories belong at that table? You know, because sometimes you can have too many accessories and sometimes you have to subtract in order to make room for new additions.
That's true. That's true.
And so I talk about a lot of those norms on a personal, professional, and civic realm in terms of how do you transform those experiences in the course of your life? How do you transform those setbacks and stepping stones and realize they're both equally important in your life? How do you fail forward?
Right.
What does that look like?
What does that look
How
like?
do you examine in terms of the people that are within your life? Because sometimes people can be in your circle, but not in your corner.
Well, that's true. And I think going back to being invited to somebody else's table, they tolerate you. They really don't care nothing for you.
Correct.
That's what I've learned. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So one of my other books, that's actually a part of a chapter, and I asked this one fundamental question. Are you around people who celebrate you or tolerate you? And you actually have to create a list of the people who tolerate me and why, and the people who celebrate me and why. And if you be transparent and real with yourself, what you will identify is some people who you thought was on one side of the list, they're really on the other side of the list. And then some people, they switched up.
Right.
They switched up.
They flipped.
And so it's not about realizing they switched up, but identifying when did they switch up? And was I in a state of denial already that they had switched up?
Have you ever been so busy where you didn't see it?
Yeah, I have. Plenty of times.
Okay.
Plenty of times where I needed to slow down.
Okay.
Because sometimes your good intentions can wind up being bad well-beings.
Oh, that's good.
And you can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
But operating in emptiness, staying on the go, you miss things. You miss those red warning signs in terms of. And so it's not a thing to beat yourself up, but to be able to self-examine what was the challenge.
And the thing about it is, you try to do it in the name of I'm creating this vision. I'm entrepreneurship, but you still need a peace of mind.
Correct.
You need to have balance and all
Correct.
that.
Mind and peace.
Mind and peace. People are paid for peace. That's why some men pay. They'll pay $1 million a month.
Yeah.
For some peace.
Because but see, the thing is, because money comes and goes.
That's true.
Woman
That's true.
comes and goes. They can be gone today, and you replace them the next day.
Wow, you're right.
You can't replace kids, but you can replace women the next day. However, peace, and those different intangibles along that line, they don't have a price tag, because then you're able to operate a sense of calmness, creativity, create, and think things out.
Right.
Rationalize, process. Is this a one-off or is this a trend?
Right. The thing about that too, Rubin, is when did you get that? When did you realize? What trauma had to happen for you to say, okay, I really want peace amongst anything else?
There's a series of, but I would definitely say in terms of loss of a child, and then just going through a divorce.
Yeah.
And life starts happening. You realize that, things can change just like a drop of a hand. And so, these latter years of your life, you want to have peace, happiness, and joy. Those things you can't pay for, those tangibles. And there's a sacrifice in having those things.
Yeah, it's worth it though.
Yeah, it's worth it.
It's
no
more
doubt.
worth it. But
Yes.
I think I can understand. I remember I first got married. Denota got pregnant the second year, and she miscarried. But when she miscarried, I thought it was my fault because I did so much stuff before I got married. So then I started carrying around the guilt. I started carrying around the shame, maybe because I was a whore back in the day, maybe. And then we just had the enemy was just trying to infiltrate my mind, and I had to get some counsel behind it, and then let God peel those layers. Like, it ain't your,
Right.
It's just not the cards you just dealt with.
Right.
And I had to find peace in that.
Yes. And
Self-sabotage stuff.
yeah, that's self-sabotage. And it's good, that therapy piece, to have that. I have these things called personal investments that I have within myself. One is my therapist.
Right.
One is my nutritionist.
Okay.
And one is my trainer.
Okay.
In terms of, you are a business. No one can market you like you market yourself.
Right.
A part of that self-love, self-investment, as I invest in those things. But getting back to your point of, that is good that you were able to overcome that, because a lot of men or women are not able to overcome that. And you realize that through that experience, whether you had a miscarriage, I had a stillborn, that when Rubin Lorenzo Cockrell passed January 27, 2022, it was like I had a puzzle piece.
Right.
And I had a puzzle piece, all the puzzle was together, and I was like a wide receiver, getting ready to score a touchdown.
Right.
And then the defensive back came and just blopped all the pieces, all on the floor.
What was your first reaction?
It was sadness.
Yeah.
It's something I described the hardest day of my life that I wouldn't wish my worst enemy to have. It was sadness and emptiness. And what you realize in picking up those puzzle pieces, because when it comes to grief and loss, that you don't get over it, you learn to grow around it daily. And when you pick up those puzzle pieces, you begin to put them back together, you realize some of those puzzle pieces, they no longer fit anymore. Yeah. Some of you got to shift around from vertical to horizontal. And some, they just need new pieces in place.
How did it affect your wife at the time?
It affected her quite a bit, a great deal. It affected her a lot mentally, emotionally, in a lot of different ways. And
so you're trying to be strong, not just for yourself, but for your wife too.
And here's the thing that I've told a lot of men and women, is that men and women, we grieve differently.
That's true.
Traditionally, in most situations, men, we grieve and be still and grieve and go, because we have to. Women usually, not all the time, but usually grieve and be still. And if you don't have that open line of communication, if you decrease communication, you increase room for assumptions. And so while you may deal with those situations differently, if there's not a level of understanding that, hey, I'm grieving this way, you're grieving this way, individually, I'm going to respect how you're grieving, but collectively, this is how we're grieving, and these are the resources. If you don't have that in place, then resentment builds up. Right. On both sides, and it may build up in different ways, but it's gonna come.
Did you?
I definitely did, and not so much. Let me say, not so much, because I never blamed the situation of my son or my ex-wife or myself. Right. So take that off the equation. Right. I don't not blame that. However, when you have certain norms of challenges that you were dealing with before. And then on top of that, and then life changes differently. And then, like I say, grieving, if you don't communicate, and grieving and being still and grieving and go, we don't have that liberty because we still have to provide and do certain other things. And if it's not talked about it in place, resentment will build in.
Let me ask you this: do you think, because you had another,
Yeah, and Rainbow Sun.
Rainbow
Yes.
Sun.
Yes.
So, but do you think, was that the start of me seeing red flags about the divorce about to happen? That caused us
There
Gary?
are red flags more than that. What I would say is that I was dealing with duality, and duality is polar opposite emotions at the same time. And so a portion of the pregnancy, I was in sorrow, but I was happy. I was in sorrow of one son, but I was happy of another son.
Right.
And it wasn't until God had showed me a moment that it's going to be all right. Your son's spirit, Lorenzo Michael Cockrell's spirit, will live in Rubin Cockrell Jr.'s spirit. And then that took that black cloud out of me where I can embrace him getting ready to come into the world and knowing that he was going to his spirit was going to live in certain aspects of it. And so, while he was cremated, I keep a piece of him with me everywhere I go around the world, a piece of me up close and personal. And I think that's what helped me to be in tune with my children now, with my daughter and with my son now. And still think of, and still think of my son, the past, but he served his purpose. Served his purpose. And so with that experience, that's how I process that above and beyond this person in my life, this person's not in my life. I had to come to a realization of what was best for myself. If you like what you're seeing or hearing, please like, share, subscribe to My Manhood Matters.
So when did you realize, because it seemed like last time I saw you, we was at your book signing and at Tim Wynn's spot. That's the last time I really saw you.
Yeah.
It was this one.
Yes. No, the second one.
Second one,
yes.
Yeah. I bought 2 books.
Yes.
And that, and then it was I served y'all at a brunch they had too. That's the last time I saw y'all. Cause you had a little, that's the last time. It was a Mother's Day brunch or something.
Okay.
That's when I saw y'all at Wynn's spot.
Okay.
Is that when it changed, or when do you realize some?
There are a lot of changes. I think that happened and occurred. I mean, I think.
What was the straw that broke your back?
I would say I would say there was not one. However, what happens is, and once again, this is where being in tune. I think sometimes when you don't speak up on situations as a man,
right,
because you think it's creating a false sense of peace, resentment is building up. And I think when resentment builds up, when you feel there's a sense of entitlement and consistency, respect, you get to a point where you just like, you don't care. You're ready to pivot and shift. And I'm not saying it's all her fault.
Right.
Not at all.
It's
not
two
at all.
sides.
Two sides. But moving on, what I will say is that there's enough self-care, love, and respect that I've learned myself to speak up on situations in a proactive manner.
Right.
That to talk about, address, or just won't deal with at all that are not.
That's your friends?
Yeah, we're co-parenting. We're co-parenting. And I'd rather be healthy co-parents than stay in a situation for the sake of the kids, because that resentment transcends down with a lot of kids. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that with a lot of men.
Yeah.
Miserable. Yeah. And I refuse to be in a miserable situation. I'd rather work on myself, because that's the only one I can control,
right,
and be a healthy co-parent and being there the best for my children.
Let me ask you this. So just talking about you and what you did in the marriage, because it's 2 sides, right?
Yeah,
what is it that you're not going to take into the next one, if there is a next one?
I would definitely say, if I choose to go down that rope again, just really in terms of disrespect, how you approach me, and then I think also to entitlement, because you can play a part in entitlement, or you create a level in life of comfort in certain ways that certain things are just expected but not thankful for.
Let me tell you a story. I got a homeboy. He's divorced too.
Yeah.
Wife was from Memphis, just as country as. So he kind of like bought up, right?
Yeah.
She flipped the script on him, Rubin. Self-entitlement, disrespectful. He had bought her something from. He don't get me for telling the story, but he had bought her something from TJ Maxx. She went off. He had built her a home in Bluegrass Downs, custom build, gave her and she just entitlement. And now you're disrespectful. And that's one of the reasons why they got a divorce, for that same thing of self-entitlement. Do you see a lot of women doing that today? Because let me say this, I did an episode I think Danny remembers this. I did an episode on good girls want bad guys. And so what I was going with that was, when you do have a man that's loving on you, taking care of you, not cheating on you, not beating on you, calling your name. Some of these women, it's not what they want.
Mm.
So, and then they start getting this whole self entitlement. Do you see more of that?
Yeah, it is some, and then there's some good things too. I
Yeah.
think there's a little combination of both. I think what is key is what a woman or a man is exposed to prior to getting into that serious relationship, and
Right.
then with the work that they do, if they didn't have that male in their life where they were exposed to showing great things,
Right.
good things that happen, or if that brother did not have that female to show those things in place, then okay, that can't be an excuse.
Right.
I need to operate in intentionality to, you know what, let me reach out or let me get with this mature couple to be able to talk to them.
Right.
If that circumference is not there, then it can be used as a defense. Like, I don't want to talk to them. What are they doing over here?
Right.
Versus offense. And so I think it's a combination of things. I mean, I think it's what choices that people make.
That's
I
true.
think as we get mature to an age, we can't blame it on our parents.
No. Or
What we didn't see,
or the other race.
or that didn't see. It has to be in some intangibles within ourselves.
Right. So switching gears here.
Yeah.
To me, you defining healthy masculinity. And what that looks like is, of course, we know that you love the Lord, but just being made whole mentally, emotionally, financially. Is there brothers you're accountable to?
Yes, there are. I call them a part of my personal advisory board.
Okay.
I have several of them, and they serve various aspects of my life.
Amen.
Some of them have gone through divorce, remarried. Some of them gone through divorce, did not remarry.
Right.
Some from 3-star retired Marine generals on down.
Right.
And they're of different ethnicities and backgrounds.
I love that.
Too as well.
Did you have any regrets after your divorce? Did you feel like it was a setback, or did you feel like you had failed, or did you
No
feel...
regrets.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing was really focusing on my kids and
That's
making
it.
sure that they had the structure and set up in terms of both households, particularly my daughter who is 6 and she's a daddy's girl.
Oh,
So
yeah.
really making sure that those structures were in place, and if there had to be communication with their mother, it was on focus on the kids,
Gotcha.
and making sure that there are certain consistencies in both households.
Gotcha.
That was the biggest piece that, and even today, that my sole focus is on.
Yeah.
But outside of that, no regrets. I didn't take a look back.
Good. Is it still a challenge for you?
Which aspect?
Still making sure it's secure, that the kids don't miss a beat?
Yeah, I
Still
think
being present?
I think so. The thing is that period of, I really understand faith in action
Okay.
and giving it my all when I am with my kids, because I can't control when I'm not around my kids.
Right.
However, that quality of time and being intentional and having the faith in action that they will be treated well and in good manners. Challenges and mistakes are going to happen, but having that faith in action
Right.
that they are protected, the armor of protection is around them.
Right.
Like, that's really where I truly grew faith, because my kids, when they're not around,
Right.
so
Right.
when I'm traveling across the globe or do other things, I have systems in place where I can check in and do other stuff. But once again, nothing in my control.
No.
Having that real faith in action.
What does the next level of manhood look like for you?
I think that next level is unfolding. I mean, I think a part of it is intentional mentorship. I think a part of it is, I'm excited about, to see what is, some things that are next, expanding more on a global scale, as I have. And I'm excited what it has. I've been blessed to get a lot, do a lot, see a lot, travel a lot, but, looking at what's next, if that incorporates someone else or whatever I choose to do.
That's what's up. Well, I want to talk about these books, man.
Yeah.
The first one, I got this book too, is The Hidden Curriculum, Life
Yes.
Lessons You Won't Learn in a Classroom. How did this come about?
That's my first book. I came out in 2009, going on 2010. And that was just first book talking about my experiences in business,
Right.
being in the street and life, and just some of the challenges and stepping stones and some of the blocks that I had. But really looking at it in school, there's certain curriculum things that you did well if you didn't do well. However, as we look at 25 years ago versus now,
Right.
life has happened.
Right.
And there's those hidden curriculum experiences that allow us to grow into that man or to that woman that we go through. And so I address a lot of those key areas there. And one of my favorite chapters in that book, as I talked with you earlier, is the one fundamental question. Are you around people who celebrate you or tolerate you?
That's a good
And
question.
really just breaking that whole aspect down.
And then the next one here, I love the consequences of being trifling. Examine the decline of integrity, personal value systems, honoring commitments, etc., with solutions on how we can make personal and simple changes in our own daily behaviors that will lead to a more civilized society. What about this book about?
Yeah. So that book came about because it was just, there were so many things going on. And for me, it was a part of, at the time, being able to address from an emotional aspect what was going on in our society,
Right.
Just with relationships with people, with government, and other different things. In my travels, I began to jot down notes
Gotcha.
and experiences of. And so at that period of time, I began to jot down, and the word, and people looking at the word trifling in one aspect of, but it breaks down into different tiers. And so I break it down from a personal, professional, and civic realm. Like the first chapter is when leadership calls, will you be ready?
Will you be ready?
You know, and so addressing some norms, particularly.
Is this a curriculum for any schools, universities?
I've had it. Yeah, I've had a few organizations that have adopted. I had a trade union association that I licensed out a chapter for their associates across the country. So yeah, we've done some creative things. For all my books, there's courses and workshops to every chapter there.
And of course, we talked about this before, mastering your own table and why you did that, man. Rubin, you were really doing your thing, man. I'm godly proud of you, man. It seems like every time we get together, we never miss a beat because I don't talk to you often because you might be in Japan. Tell us about this whole cigar thing you got going on, Doc. How did that come about?
So it's
Did you smoke cigars in Fisk?
No, I didn't.
Because you go to Cuba to get the real deal.
No.
Okay, that's I thought you went to Cuba.
Okay. So cigars are the number one thing in the world. I say the world, that bring people together of all their ethnicities and backgrounds, because they break down stations, skin tones, whatever. Because a cigar is like a marriage, a cigarette is like a one-night stand.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It's about the experience, because typically with a cigar, you're going to be there for an hour. Right. So I can talk about books, talk about bricks, the same conversation. I mean, experiences. Yeah. I do more business around cigars than I do in a formal setting.
Right.
I mean, I've had situations where folks have cigars and Bible study to, all types of different realms. And it brings people together of various backgrounds to have conversations and just have that experience to interact and engage. And so for me, it was a wind down that I enjoyed, but the business side of it was me. I had to monetize my vice.
Right.
And so with it, being fortunate to have involved with a factory, I have a factory in Dominican Republic. I have fields, and extending it to my Dominican and Haitian brothers and sisters that work alongside of us. And then just interacting with various individuals. I was a vendor for the Super Bowl, Cigars with Stars.
I saw that.
And just interacting with a variety of different people. The misconception is it's a man's world. It has, but 60% of my clientele are women.
Yeah, I can believe that.
And so just enjoying those moments with cigars, the wind down, the experience, the experience. Probably my it was in my mid-20s.
Okay.
Mid-20s, especially going into my late 20s.
How often do you have to go to DR, Dominican?
I go down there maybe once every 6 weeks to just check on staff, my team.
Right.
Just seeing how everything is as far as production.
Okay.
The whole 9 yards. We also are going to corns and peas and some other different things. And so, for me, it's a legacy.
Right.
My cigar line, 3 of my cigars are named after my kids. Okay. So it's a legacy passed down that, they can get involved with the business if they choose to, or if they don't, but they have options. They have
right.
And that is something as a man, and particularly as a black man, that we got to create those legacies, those pipelines for our children.
And as a black man, what do you want your legacy to be?
My legacy, I mean, it's a couple of things, but really that I help educate, enrich, and enhance people's lives, and in helping them achieve my goals, their goals. I naturally hit my own goals.
Okay.
That's part of my mission, my focus, and vision for a multi-generational level.
Man, Rubin, thank you so much for your time, man. You definitely my little brother because I'm older. Where can we find you at, Rube?
Appreciate that. You can find me at www.drcockrell.com. That's www.dr and then another COCKRELL.com.
Wow. And social media?
Social media at Dr. R. Cockrell. You can find me on social media, Dr. Rubin Cockrell, as far as Facebook, Instagram at Dr. R. Cockrell.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say about manhood? Did I leave you empty? Are you emptied out?
I would just simply say that my last key point is that as we grow as men, it's important for us to listen.
Yeah.
And my acronym for listen is, when you think of it, the first letter is L. Look for the facts. Look for the facts that's going on around you. personally, professionally, and civically? Is this a one-time situation, or is this a trend that I need to self-examine and check or get resources to it? And then once you look for the facts, as a man is the letter I. Imagine the possibilities of success rather than the fear of failure. Imagine possibilities of you being successful because you put in the time, the resources to achieve your goals. Now, if you have not put up the time and resources, you're not going to be successful. But imagine the possibilities of being successful than the fear of failure. And then when you look at the S, seek insight beyond your own. Seek insight first and foremost from God, but then seek insight beyond your resource base. Seek insight beyond your own to help you with your decisions. Look at the T. The T stands for turn inward. Believe your gut. Believe that feeling that's within you, which is a lot of times happens from reflection or discernment. It's all the same thing. So once you look for the facts, you imagine the possibilities, you seek insight beyond your own, you turn inward. The E is expect greatness out of yourself even when others don't. We as men, we have to be our own biggest cheerleaders. Fall down 7, getting up 8. Expecting greatness out of yourself even when others don't. That deals with having confirmations, affirmations, and validations to counter those self-defeating behaviors that happen, those negative voices that try to take us out of the game before we even enter the stadium of opportunity. So once you look for the facts, you've imagined the possibilities, you seek insight beyond your own, you turn inward, you expect greatness out of yourself. The last one is N, is then. Once you've done all those things in terms of due diligence, you've got to name your decision and be willing to live with it and stand on it as a man.
Wow.
And with those things, there's going to either, with you standing on it, it's going to be either a stepping stone or it's going to be a stumbling block. And sometimes you're going to fail, but you got to learn how to fail forward.
That's true. That's true. Well, that's why your manhood matters, man. Again, man, I appreciate you, Rubin. All right, man.
Thank you.
To see future My Manhood Matters episodes, do me a favor, click like, share, and subscribe. Tune in for more My Manhood Matters episodes.